Hey, everybody, and welcome to Two Hairy Guys Versus. My name is Mark Hooker, and with me, as always, is Mr. John Panucci. Say hi, John.
What up, bitches? I'm John Panucci, and with me, my dear friend, my hairy friend, Mark Okern.
You may notice
So
something.
excited.
You may notice something a little bit new about this episode. Now, what's it been like? 14 months
Oh my God, yeah.
since we sat on my deck and did the last audio version of one of these. It's like I
And the
remember that-
only in-person one.
and we were like, "Hey, this is going to be great. This is going to be this, this ongoing weekly thing." Oops.
Sometimes life throws little curveballs at you you're not ready for.
And sometimes life beats you over the head with a sledgehammer.
Sometimes, yep. True stories.
So you can
Some we've already talked about.
So you can see us, which this is not going to help our listener viewership.
No.
Happened. No,
Plummeting as we speak.
This is going to, I think we're actually, you go from like starting at 0 and we are going into negative numbers right now. So for those of you who have forgotten who we are, which is probably everybody, or those who didn't know who we are, which is even more than everybody.
That's true.
So we are two hairy guys from Minnesota who talk about, we've gotten the description, like we talk about like guitars and metaphysics, and we talk about whatever we feel like talking about.
Pretty much, yeah. On a weekly, sometimes 30-second to 30-second basis.
Sometimes a 14-month basis.
Hey, squeeze it in when we can.
So we're going with video here. So, bear with us as we try new platforms and try new things. If you're listening to this on audio, we will still be on the podcast. This will all be put up with the normal podcast channels that we've been doing now for a couple of years. You missed our intro music. I will take that on the chin because I pinged you last night, didn't I? And say, hey, do you want to do this live on video?
Yeah. The whole every portion of the conversation regarding what is happening right now, I believe, took place after 7 p.m.
Yeah, it was pretty much in the last 14 hours that we decided to do this.
And I think we're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but we are trying. So if you're watching this live, cool. I don't know that you are. I don't know that anybody is because we didn't give you any warning to watch
None
this live.
whatsoever.
But if you're watching us on demand, thank you. Like and subscribe. Ooh, actually,
do it.
It is. I can do this. There we go. Yeah. Down below. Please remember to like and subscribe. It's funny. We act like this is some big deal. It's like, and me, the guy who's been doing video collaboration work for 20 years. New technology. Never mind the fact I do this times 20 for my customers.
What are you going to do?
So we're trying out some new platforms. We're trying out some new things here. I think we're live on YouTube, on Twitch, and is Twitter still a thing? Or did that turn into the hot mess that there's Twitter. Yeah,
there we go.
We are still there at the moment until the entire place lights on fire.
Yeah, until the aroma of musk takes over.
There's 3,700 people getting laid off today. Let's just hope it's not the person who's in charge of making sure our stream's going out. It would be about our luck.
Well, I'm pretty sure we fall low on the totem pole. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure we do. Okay, so let's talk about this because it's applicable. I'm going to segue from jokes and layoffs into layoffs because that's part of what's been going as usual. Gee, it wouldn't be a Two Hairy Guys return episode if we weren't talking about job changes.
Yep.
Again, so I went through I can start because I've had drama. We've both had drama, and I think you have the cooler workplace, but we're going to save that for a minute. And if you've got that picture, by the way, it's you should send that my direction. We should share that photo unless you're not allowed to share those photos.
The one of the stage that I sent you?
Yes.
Yeah, that one I can send you.
Okay. Yes. Because we should show that. I actually want to put that up on screen for viewers to look at here because you've got the cooler workplace, but we're going to save that for a little bit here.
But I don't make anywhere near as much money as Mark.
Yeah. Okay. Don't get me wrong. I'm not I am not overly musky myself. Yeah. It's I was the one person in video collab who did not get rich amongst the pandemic. I swear. So I hit, I think last time we met, I had just a few months prior started a new gig, working for a company that was, they were Norwegian, but their U.S. office was based out of the D.C. area, and I was doing all federal work. And come early June, we got for those of you who've never been through a layoff. And I think we're going to tag this with like daily life and tech and all this other kind of garbage because the stuff we talk about. For those of you who've never been, maybe you're earlier in your career, maybe you were lucky like me and had never been laid off. I mean, I got like fired from like some college jobs, right? But nothing like nothing since my career had started. And no, we had back in early June, we had an all company new town hall. We had a new CEO and all that. And they mentioned that there were going to be some changes coming in some teams. And I figured, hey, we're on the federal team. We were doing really well. We were safe. And like 2.5 hours later, I log in for my previously scheduled one-on-one with my boss. And I hold no ill will, by the way, for any of this. But I log in, and my boss is there, and there's the U.S. HR person.
Oh, no.
And I'm just like, oh, beep. Like, well, this is gonna go sideways.
Oh, that sucks.
And it was a pear shaped. It was like 15 minutes. I mean, there's not much to say. It's like there's not much you do at that point except go, okay, send me my severance information, and hope that they're paying you for at least a little bit of time, which they did.
Right.
But then I went on the job search. I'm like, this is, I've been doing video collab. I'm a subject matter expert. I'm on industry podcasts and streams relatively often. I've, contributed some articles. I should have no problem finding a gig in the field, especially with the pandemic and video collab being so huge. Yeah. 67 job applications later.
Oh my God.
I went back
remember
and counted,
you messaging me.
67 job apps later. And I talked to companies that were like 50 people, and I talked to companies that were like tens of thousands of people. Actually probably hundreds of thousands of people in a couple of cases. And it amazes me how many companies just ghost you these days, like just utterly ghost you, right? I had one very well-known video company. I'm not going to out and embarrass anybody here because, hey, I might want need a job at some other point in my life.
Don't burn any bridges.
But there was one very well-known company that had posted some positions. I'm like, well, I'm like, I've got to be a top candidate for this, just based on it's a small industry, right? Most industries are when you really get down to it, but at least at the high levels. And like, there's no way I'm not, that I'm not qualified for this gig. And I got nothing back, nothing. And this kept happening. I'm like, this is weird. So I pinged a friend of mine within the industry who used to be at this company and did a little research. And it turned out that they were honeypotting. They were posting job listings that didn't actually have jobs attached to them. If you can believe that. And they weren't the only ones doing this, to be fair. But
I'm sure.
They're posting openings where there's no real job behind it. It's literally it was just we're collecting resumes for future. Like, well, this does me no good.
Yeah.
I got into multiple like deep rounds of interviews with a few of the really big tech companies, and I mean really big. And almost every time 3-4 times the job disappeared while I was in process. Like they said, nope, we're hiring freeze or we're cutting this role. And it got really frustrating, man. It got really frustrating. And what's funny is that the job I ended up with was one of the first ones to reach out to me. So because and I'll give credit because one of our leaders from the company I had been at actually there was a big trade show going on, ran over to the booth from my current employer and said, hey, we just had to do a reduction in force. You should talk to Mark and hire this guy. And so and they reached out very quickly. It was a little bit of a longer process, but it's like, yeah, that's funny. After all the circling back, after all that, it's like I ended up on one of the original ones. So I am back and gainfully employed, and more so I have health. And don't get me going on health insurance being tied to employment. Oh my gosh.
Okay, you're talking to a guy who's been on Minnesota assistance for healthcare because of how screwed up the system is.
All right, so
That's an entirely different podcast.
Oh, you know what? I'm just going to do 2 minutes on this. So I got my first experience of this because I was fortunate. My previous employer said, "Hey, we're going to cover COBRA. We'll cover your COBRA through a certain date." And like most people, it's like I didn't activate COBRA unless I needed it, right?
Right.
But especially with COVID still going on and everything else, it's good to know you've got that safety net. But, time was coming up here where it's like, okay, I'm about to run out of them paying my Cobra, and the payment for Cobra, for those of you who haven't been through this, is ungodly.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Once you take over that employer share of the premium, oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. Yeah, it's horrible. So I ping MinSure. Oh, I mean, and MinSure is one of the better ones.
Yeah.
I have nothing but sympathy for anybody who has to go through the exchanges and all that. And then, of course, I actually did spend a couple of weeks with the Minnesota unemployment, which again is a whole other process to go through all that.
Yeah.
Thankfully, like, my review was expedited and all that kind of a thing. But it's like, yeah, I never want to go through this again. No, I'm good. I'm good. I've experienced it once. I have nothing but empathy for anyone who's going through this garbage. It's a creepy time, man. But that was my employment story. You had a very different one.
Well, okay. So when last we spoke, I had just changed careers from being a pastor to being a cabinet maker. And so
there's a carpenter joke in there somewhere.
There is. It's Jesus Carpenter joke, something about wood. There's definitely something in there. So I was working at this cabinet making company, and it was all right, but just kind of still around the type of personality types that I was trying to escape in the first place when I was leaving ministry. So I started looking around for another place local, and I ended up stumbling upon a company that was based right out of the same town that I'm in, actually 0.2 miles closer to my house than where I was working. So that was nice. But then during that process, so I was only there for 3 months, but about 2 months in, I got reprimanded, and rightly so. I had done some shitty work. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I needed to get talked to. But something that stuck out to me in the reprimand was that we have $50 million homes that we're building these cabinets for. And I mean, we're talking CEOs, CFOs that are buying these condos that we're putting these things in. And I'm like, I don't want to build things for those kinds of people. And for that kind, I don't, there's got to be something more. And so my wife, I've got some maintenance skills and stuff. So my wife started looking online for different jobs with Indeed, and I was looking, and she stumbled on this one that looked kind of cool. And I figured, all right, you know what? I'll just do the application. I'm currently employed. There's no harm. A little trick I learned from my dear friend, Mr. Mark Okren over there.
Always be open to a conversation.
Always. My Indeed is an amazing thing. So I did. I applied to this job, and it was a pretty quick turnaround. I applied. I think I had a phone interview 2 days later, and then I had a face-to-face the next day, and then I was offered the job the following Monday. Just had to, pass the 4-panel screening and everything, which was not a problem. Mm-hmm. And now I am gainfully employed. I don't know how gainfully, but I'm employed at Paisley Park Museum, the former home and studio of the eponymous musician, songwriter, actor, director, producer, Prince Rogers Nelson. That's where
known as Prince, formerly known as Prince.
The artist formerly known as Prince. Yes, the symbol, the love symbol.
Yes.
Yeah, so I work at Paisley Park. It's freaking ridiculous, dude. And so I'll get to work events.
Do you get to use the recording studio facilities, or
I don't, but I get to go into them, and they are ridiculous.
Are they still functioning as a studio over there, or is it all museum?
It's functioning as a studio by invitation only. So I know recently there was a couple artists in, but it's not open like it used to be, where you can contact somebody and just be like, I'd like to record. So it has to be something.
So it's not like call them up, pay the the rightfully exorbitant fee, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
of course, even I think, but even still, when Prince was running it too, I think it was still kind of his pet projects, like, were allowed in, right? It wasn't totally open studio.
Yeah, and I have like 3 studios, 2 venues in there. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. It's like 65,000 square foot facility. So yeah, I work at Paisley Park. I do
Nice.
maintenance, so like I paint stuff, but who cares? It's Paisley Park.
Well,
And in
I
the
mean, if
yeah,
they need somebody to pick up a guitar,
that's, I I am not worthy to touch a
you've
Prince
used the
guitar.
same luthier.
That is true.
Yeah.
The guy
Dave Son.
who built the cloud guitar, the original cloud guitar, he has done work on several of my guitars. Actually, can't find there we go. This guitar right here.
I have a hand. It's
I
attached.
mirrored it, so I'm really
The
confused right now.
moving finger.
So over here somewhere, this guitar is a Seagull, and it had gotten dropped on a cement floor and got a huge crack right up in here. And I was worried because Dave wasn't taking customers, but I guess he still has his contracts with like different shops around that he does stuff for. So he ended up getting that guitar anyway, and it actually sounds better now fixed than it did before it had a crack in it. So yeah, I've had Dave Rasan has worked on quite a few of my guitars, and
He put the mojo into there.
Oh,
What else do I see? Is that a bass I see back there?
yep, that's my SX Fender Jazz copy.
I don't think I've seen that one before.
I don't think you have. I
No.
got that one as a trade.
Okay.
When I got rid of my bass 6, I got this, and then I got a generic.
Oh, you got rid of the
bass.
bass 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just wasn't jiving.
Just wasn't doing it for you?
Wasn't doing it. Down here is my telly.
Yeah, that's
I really got to figure this mirroring thing out.
That's like your baby thing. I think you can turn off the mirroring somewhere in settings, but yeah, I don't know. It's, I can't see what. Oh, yes. Okay.
Danny right here.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I've got one in the case, and then my other one is actually I think where's my other one? I don't know what room it's sitting in at the moment because it was sitting in the dining room.
Okay.
Because I had it out there for something other. Yeah, it's not in the dining room anymore. I don't know where I think it's sitting across the hall at the moment. I had it out. Long story short, Sarah. For those of you who have not been keeping score at home, so Sarah, my wife, is also a musician and a better one than I am, and she got into mandolin.
No. Tell everybody what she plays.
Well, piano is her formally trained instrument.
Specific song. Hold on, I know it. Where's my mouse? I'm gonna private chat it to you.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Have you found? Yeah. You're fascinated by the fact that she's played that song before. Yeah, she has played Pinball Wizard. Yes.
Okay. Mark's wife, Sarah, who is an absolutely lovely person, for the fact that she is still married to Mark alone.
Right.
If there's a God, she gets saying to it. But Sarah is, when you meet her, seemingly the most soft-spoken person you could ever meet. Not the case, but she is very reserved, and I'm not being disrespectful when I say she appears librarian-esque.
I think she'd take that as a compliment.
When you first meet her.
I think she would take that as a compliment.
And then to find out that she can play the song you're going to tell us, that she can play it perfect, just makes my life better.
John was fascinated by the fact that she can play Pinball Wizard. She is a classically trained pianist.
Yeah.
I was a classically trained trumpet player, which these days I'd be lucky to play a C scale. I'm sure I could, do it with. I'd sound like maybe not a dying moose, but I would sound like a very sick moose. But yeah, I was originally a music and computer science major, and then everything went to hell. For those of you who haven't ever thought about majoring in music in college, it is What did you start college as a music major too, or what was it? Were you ministry, or what were you back?
No, I started as a music major, and then I realized I had to do music theory, and so I said screw that, and I became a youth ministry major.
I took 5 levels of music theory.
I believe it.
Yeah, and mind you, you are nothing to do with ministry these days. You have gone the other direction.
I have, but music theory, I ended up learning a lot over the years. Anyway, with music theory, I do wish I had taken the classes just to have made my life easier in learning music. But I've learned enough now that I can squeak
Here's
by.
the circle of fifths. Here's a pentatonic scale. Go play rock and roll.
There you go.
You really think Keith Richards ever took music theory courses? Watch.
No.
I should look at like Wikipedia. Watch. He's going to have like gone to school for music or something like that.
Right.
Although I'm pretty sure he went to school for.
Unlike Brian May, who actually has a doctorate.
He's an astrophysicist.
Yeah, he's an astrophysicist.
Yeah, and actually, I think he just was part of a published paper like a year ago or something. I mean, he's published before, but
Yeah.
like something that actually got some more attention. It's like, yeah. When you're a rock star and you're bored, you go be an astrophysicist. Well, it's kind of like
what are you doing in your off time? That's true.
The life that musicians and astrophysicists, they both talk about the mysteries of the universe and try, but well, it's kind of like me, right? It's like I was going to be a lawyer, of course, and what do you do when you decide you don't want to be a lawyer in your last semester and you break your mother's? You go be a roadie for how many years, and go do that. And then you wind up back in IT because, A, you're getting married, you need a more stable job, and B, you can't smoke that much weed.
Speak for yourself. I mean, yes, you are right.
I was actually a very well-behaved roadie. I joke. I was a very well-behaved roadie. And then, of course, I went into doing federal work for stuff. So it's like I went the total opposite. Everything you like that was fun about being a roadie, it's like you don't get to do anymore when you deal with the feds. Oh, yeah. So it's
no sense of humor.
No, they really don't. It's funny, when I got into doing the federal gig, it's like, oh, this is going to be really solid. And then, of course, federal purchasing dries up like everything else did. And it's like, okay, looking for a job again.
Yeah. Well, I think that poses the question. And I actually asked this of a coworker from my previous place. What do you want to be when you grow up?
First, I got to grow up.
Well, okay. What do you want to be when you get older?
Alive.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Given the last 4 years, I'd say that is a reasonable goal to try to aim for.
It's we always joke in the collaboration. So the collaboration's a redhead stepchild inside, and somewhere there's a redhead stepchild taking offense to that. But collaboration's the weird part of IT, right? Because it's it kind of grew out of the AV space, and it's this weird part of IT that we always joke nobody gets into it on purpose.
Right.
It's like everybody just kind of trips and falls into it. It's the dog poop of information technology.
Oh, you got some IT on your shoe. Oh,
anybody from my industry is watching this. They're like, "What?" But I mean, seriously, you make that joke to anybody in my industry and say it's like, well, I didn't get into this on purpose, and everybody laughs because everybody
Right.
can't. I mean, the number of people who wind up in the field from either like falling into it from the IT side or coming from the live, like especially the live audio side, is just it's mind-boggling. There are so many former sound engineers. I was going to say pro sound engineers. I don't know how pro everybody is, but it's but nobody ends up in there on purpose. So it's like and trying to plot. Okay, so spoiler alert. I'm going to be doing some videos on like LinkedIn that are going to be far more professional than anything like not professional production, professional topics than you and I have covered.
Okay.
Sorry.
That makes more sense.
And discuss some of that because part of the problem with you've been through this too. I mean, you changed careers, midlife, and
Twice so far,
and you're kind of doing it again.
And I'm kind of working on another one right now. So.
Right, and it's and I actually, if you don't mind, I'll get to that. I want to get to that in a second, but the. When you fall into an industry like that, it's very hard to think of a career path. And one of the things I want to do with kind of some of my personal content is to talk about, what we see all this garbage on. I want to say, well, it's garbage actually, because you see this stuff on YouTube, you see this stuff on LinkedIn of these, I'm a senior architect for, this massive tech firm with this huge produce thing, or even more so, you see these influencers and content creators who do, and I have nothing but respect for people who do content creation as their job, like YouTube, all that. If you can do it, more power to you, because it really is a ton of work.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's an absolute, and one of the reasons that I like doing like this live stuff with you is I'm lazy when it comes to editing. I'm putting up what we're putting, so don't drop any F-bombs.
All right.
But it's a ton of work. Content creation, it's it's like writing. It's like writing a novel. Everyone's like, I'm going to sit down and write the next great American novel. Do you ever? I know you've watched Simpsons, but did you ever see the book job episode of The Simpsons?
No.
Okay, it's Neil Gaiman. It's not. I don't think it's the only one that Gaiman's been on, but Neil Gaiman's in it. And it's a takeoff on The Italian Job.
Okay.
It's kind of like if you combine like the Ocean's stuff a little bit, The Italian Job, and what it is basically Lisa finds out that her favorite series of like young adult novels were actually ghostwritten by basically a bunch of like English majors working for minimum wage.
Sure.
In a sweatshop.
like the Hardy Boys series.
Yeah, she did. Well, yeah, what the Hardy Boys series became, right?
Yeah.
And she finds out that her favorite author was just an actress, right? And and they were really so. But Homer, overhearing this, realizes that, hey, you can get really rich off these type of novels. So he pulls together like Bart and Moe and all these other people, and including Neil Gaiman, who joins to write, the next bestseller, like, Harry Potter knockoff type of a thing.
Yeah.
And Lisa gets very, very offended. And she's like, I'm going to, write my own novel. And she goes through, like, sets herself up for writing, and then she has to get her music right. She has to organize her books, and then she goes to the coffee shop and has to get on the Wi-Fi. And she finally screams, she's like, writing is the hardest thing ever. It's like, yeah, people think that it's easy to do content creation of any type, and it's a grind, man. It's a slog.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been well, and you know this obviously, but I've been trying to get back into writing music again. And it's interesting when, we've talked about my change in beliefs. It's interesting what that can do with your mindset when you start to try to write again. Because there have been times before where, like, all of a sudden I'd get, distracted or disappointed, and I'd be like, oh, I'm under spiritual attack and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes I'd let it get to me and all that kind of crap. But now it's just been great because, like, I can just be like, you know what? No, I'm just distracted and just kind of trying to sit down and push ahead. And I know some of the stuff that writing is crap, but I got to kind of rebuild that structure and that muscle again, just because it's kind of atrophied a little bit from not being used for so long. But
you mean it's not the devil interfering with your?
I know. Who knew? I was certain for so long that I was under attack, but nope. I just have ADD and depression.
That's most musicians, actually.
That's true. Yeah. That's why weed is so popular amongst them.
So I just realized I can change the lower thirds here.
Ooh, we're lonely. Join us.
Join us. True. It is, it's I fully expect like the first like few months of these, if we're lucky to get one person watching on it, but hey, things happen. Might get lucky. We might get lucky, or somebody else might get bored. That's the more likely.
You know what? I'll take anything I can get.
Well, I mean, people stumble across things. Like I stream on Twitch under a different name. But yeah, I'm a gamer. Not like my nephew can kick my butt at Fortnite, because I have the reactions of my gray hair.
Is it your gamer name that I know?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah, Mitchy.
Yeah.
Or is it a different? Yes. So yeah, I do like Elite Dangerous, a lot of space stuff and all that kind of stuff. So yes, I mean, and I've usually had at least a few viewers, and I've had some really good interactions with people, via Twitch. So I mean, you can be, the people can pick on that all they want, but actually, it's a really cool platform for finding that kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, the there's a whole rant I've got to go about like content creation and technology and, age gaps. So yeah, I've got all these other things planned out that we can talk about as we go. And I just think it's like, hey, I should tie in the two hairy guys to my professional stuff and do like the professional show. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's been a blast to do some of that kind of thing. But I've got nothing but respect for content creators who do that, whether it's Twitch or YouTube or anything else for a career. I mean, people who have 1 million subscribers and can do that full time. And you think it's like, oh, that's the easiest life ever. It's a ton of work.
Oh yeah.
But what drives me nuts, where I was originally going before we went down that last rabbit hole. If you're new here, get used to the rabbit holes. We've got more tangents than, your 10th grade geometry class.
And there's the Mensa joke for our new listeners.
Yeah, well.
Short synopsis: Mark qualifies to be a member of Mensa.
I don't remember my math scores, so let's keep that one to ourselves. Yeah. It's really funny. Like back in the day, it's like you could dump like, trigonometry on me, advanced algebra. It's like I did like, calculus and linear algebra in college and all that kind of stuff. And these days it's like 4 times 5. Where's my calculator?
Yeah.
But I go on YouTube. I mean, I'm an avid consumer of YouTube, and thank goodness for premium because I hate ads. And I mean, avid consumer of YouTube. But a lot of the channels I watch, with the full-time YouTubers, I love the production value, all that. But they talk about, their day in the life, which is, if they're doing it from a creator standpoint, is cool. But they talk about, like productivity, like, how to be productive.
Yeah.
And I'm going, you live such a different life from the average person consuming this. From the average person working in an office, working in in a corporation. And I just kind of sit there. It's like, well, you too can do this if you do this. And it's like, okay, well, I know who's sponsoring you.
Right. Yeah. And you look at my wife and I talk about it all the time because we follow Rhett and Link. Good Mythical Morning is one of the, I probably spend 90% of my viewing on YouTube. And we talk about it all the time. Like, okay, they have their 20-minute daily show. Then they have another 20-minute after show. But then aside from that, they just did their first Mythicon. They did their own convention down in Texas.
Like of all their viewers and
people could different brackets and everything for it.
Right.
And they've got their Mythical Society, which is a subscription base, but there's content for that they're creating all the time. Actually, this blanket right here was my Mythical Society gift.
Really?
For this last quarter. Yeah.
Cool.
And, and then Rhett just came out with a country album in the midst of all this. And so it's like, and they have their main office. Then they also have a creative house that they have that's separate. And it's like, how do these guys have time to see their families with all of the stuff they're doing? But like you said, it's a completely different mindset for these people and the way that they go through things. I'm not like that. If I made it famous via something like YouTube or something else, it would merely be because I was tagging along with somebody else who knew what the hell they were doing. Well, Mark,
yeah, you're screwed. Well, yeah, but it's funny. I was talking with Sarah about this last night, even to an extent, is that you see these channels of people who've got 1 million, 2 million, 10 million subscribers. It's rarely just them, right? I mean, they have whole teams of producers and camera people and all that working behind the scenes, right? And they have editors. Yeah. One of my favorite YouTube channels. And has been since before he went big, is Answers with Joe Scott.
Oh,
and, I love Joe's, I love all of his channels. But, I was following him from when he was relatively small compared to where I think he's at 1.5 million or something right now. Relatively small compared to where he is right now. And he's pulled the veil back a few times. and shown what it takes to put all that on, and the amount of time it takes to research his type of. I mean, he's a science communicator, I guess, for lack of a better area. And the amount of research it takes just coming up with topics, and the number of people he has that work with him, editors and writers and researchers, just to get that 20-minute video out there. And I know Veritasium and all the others. I mean, some of them, that there's a crew like PBS Space Time and things like that. But there's a theme. I tend to watch a lot of the sciencey stuff because I'm a nerd. But yeah, I mean, it's rarely, the one person. I mean, you see that with Twitch, and gamer streams and things, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
I can't rank on game streamers because I am one. But the produced YouTube stuff. I mean, where it's the quality of those big channels. It's the quality of anything you find on TV.
Oh, absolutely.
And actually better than most.
And they're working just as hard, if not more, behind the scenes. And there's, have you ever? I watch quite a few cooking shows on YouTube, and there's one called Sorted. It's a group of guys out of Europe, out of England, and the whole premise of the show is that when they started, one of them is a chef, and the rest are quote unquote normals. And so it was kind of like teaching them how to cook like during the week but over the process of what I think 6 or 7 years, they've grown from being in basically a basement to now they have their own studio, they have staff, they have other chefs and stuff that are doing like you would on a full like Food Network show. They're doing all of that, but they have the creative control over it. They get to do what they want to do, which I think that's the beautiful part of, I would say, technology kind of in general. We've seen it a lot with the music industry.
Right.
You look at Weezer and Radiohead and those guys saying, you know what, screw the record labels. We're just going to go ahead and do it ourselves because we have the technology. It's accessible. Like there's no tomorrow now.
That's a great point. And for those and for anyone watching, if anyone ever does, you may you notice my camera moving a little bit here as I'm making an adjustment, but it applies. I promise you, this is germane. Because whether it's the record labels or other things, it's like, so I'm sitting here. I got a webcam in front of me. And no sponsorships. It's I'm paid for it my own money. I actually, there was a whole. I got to try it ahead of time because of industry stuff, but if I wanted to keep it, I had to buy it. And I did. So Insta360 Link, nice PTZ 4K webcam in front of me that I can do things like, it's motorized. It's got, it's literally a little gimbal.
Nice.
Looks like a little drone camera. And I mean, it's an awesome piece of kit. And, you and I've got relatively decent setups. I'm in my home office, which, again, going back to The Simpsons is a disaster. Believe it or not. There's a Simpsons episode where Bart and Homer are home alone.
It's like both of us from the neck down.
Yeah, well, I'm wearing pants. What are you wearing? I have pants on.
I'm not going to stand up because we're on live.
Do not drop that web camera. Oh my gosh. But there's a Simpsons episode where Bart and Homer are home alone. Marge is out, and they're doing Skype calls. And it's kind of a thing. And I think someone did like a mock graphic, or it might have been on the show, but it was basically what they'd done is that the whole house was a mess and knee deep in trash, and they had this wedge behind the couch that was clean because that's what showed up on camera. And that's kind of the way my God. I'm like, what does my body block? And I've got a big body, so I can block a lot of crap.
That sounds like education during COVID when our kids were locked down in the house. Because anything that we could do to try to not show the disaster. Then again, we did have the household where I jokingly everybody has a colander, but we have one of those old metal colanders that was like a grandmother's. And joking around, I put it on my youngest kid's head while he was in math class. And I'm like, it's your math hat.
Did it become a thing?
All semester.
Oh, my Lord.
He wore that thing. to every live classroom. It was. I couldn't get him to take it off. It was. Sorry, I derailed there for a second. I don't know.
No shame. No. The just picturing the kid showing up in the tinfoil hat. It's the Panucci child again.
Here there again.
Just like what was that horrible sci-fi Signs with Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix?
Oh yeah.
I mean, absolutely horrible movie. I mean, it's a laughable. The only thing that was the one good scene in that movie was when you see the alien like running between the hedges.
Yeah.
That was creepy.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, you got that kind of almost Sasquatch kind of pose out of it.
Yeah, it's like, but other than that, just a terrible. Yeah, I'm just. Yeah, it's like the classic shot of them all sitting there with the tinfoil on their heads. I'm picturing the Panucci kids.
Yeah.
You've got one of them overseas now.
Yeah, my oldest. Well, so it was an interesting summer here at our house.
Yeah, because when we last did this, that she had not gone overseas yet, I don't think.
No, let me think. No, because
that was
summer.
July. It was July of 2021.
Yeah, so she left in September of 2021.
And where's she studying over there?
Essex University in Essex, England. And she finished her first year and she came home. She was home for almost 3 months, I think.
They're kind of on a different schedule compared to university.
Yeah,
right?
They start a lot later. Like she didn't go back until end of September, and I think classes start October. But yeah, so we had a great summer with her.
Nice.
It was things got emotional at the airport when we had to take her home, and
is it better when the teenager leaves the house?
I'm gonna say it was harder. It was harder sending her off this time, than it was when she left after high school.
I believe that.
Well, and I think part of it, and I think she would agree with this, is that she realizes that she did some growing up when she was over there, and we did too,
right?
And coming home, it was a really positive, great experience.
That's
all
awesome.
Around. So yeah, but now she's over there and she is actually renting a house with some flatmates, and so flatmates. She's not coming back next summer.
Not coming back. Oh boy.
So my wife and I are trying to figure out a way to possibly maybe try to get over there sometime to visit.
Okay.
Neither of us have been.
I was gonna say, have you been?
I've never been. Well, I've been to Canada, but that doesn't count because that's
we're Minnesota. We're Canada light.
Yeah.
all the taxes, half the healthcare.
Are we Labatt's or Molson's? I just want to know. Yeah,
got better coffee. Tim Hortons is trash, and there goes the Canadian audience for good.
They're gone.
Yeah,
don't talk about Quebec. Don't. But yeah, so she was home.
Well, everybody hates Quebec, and Quebec hates everybody.
That's true.
So it's all right.
In the midst of being home, my wife changed careers. So
that's right.
She went from being.
That's right.
She went from she was looking to change careers.
Yes.
And in the midst of that is when I switched to the second cabinet making company. Shortly after that, she started where she works. She works for the CAP agency, government funded. Basically, she does Meals on Wheels for 3 or 4 towns around where we live.
But she had been dealing with long COVID though, hadn't she?
Oh, my wife almost died.
Yeah.
September of
pre-vaccines, pre-treatments, right? It was like you guys were like the first round, weren't you?
Yeah, she got
2020.
February. March we shut down. February shut. Yeah, March.
No,
we shut down.
The shutdown. Well, the actual shutdown was like late April into May. I think was the final big shutdown.
Yeah, and so in October
2020. Yeah,
October of 2020. My wife got sick, and
so did you, right?
I got it. I had.
You both had it.
I had what I would qualify as probably the worst flu I've ever had, but that was really it. I mean, I might have some of the long-term effects, but I don't know yet.
Right.
But my wife was down. She
Right.
probably spent almost a year living on the couch because she had no energy, no strength, and ended up in the hospital right before we sent our daughter off to college. She was in the hospital for almost 3.5, 4 days. Wouldn't release her until she had stabilized. But
Well,
yeah,
that was close to a year later, wasn't it?
yeah,
That was
yeah.
close.
So October of 20, she got sick.
Yeah.
September of 21,
21.
she was in the hospital.
Right.
So yeah, it was a long year with that. And so then when she went back to work, and she was the assistant manager for the middle school here in our town. So she was the assistant manager for the lunchroom. And I mean, that's physical work, and it gets hot back there.
Yeah.
And we had
food service is tough.
It is. And we had an experience where I got a text message from my wife's coworker to get over to the school immediately. And turns out, like, my wife had passed out. This is right about when she went into the hospital. She had passed out at work. Fortunately, somebody was there and kind of saw what was happening and caught her. And then she had a similar experience. Actually, the night of my youngest son's birthday, she was going to cut the cake, and same thing. Started to pass out. I had to run into the kitchen and catch her. So yeah, I mean, she had it bad, and she still has a lot of the long-term effects. She never had breathing problems before. Now she's wheezy and almost asthmatic, digestive issues because of it. Screwed up. Here's getting intimate, but screwed up her cycle for a very long time.
That's been in the news lately, though. I mean, that's been all over the news that it messes with that.
We thought she was premenopausal because she went for 6 months without having a cycle, and so they had to put her on a medication that basically what it does is it everything you haven't done, your body does all at once as one period. And so, I mean, it was...
Well, yeah, because it's dangerous to have, like, buildup. Yeah.
Because your body's not shedding off the lining like it's supposed to. So that's just... Yeah, so it was... Yeah. So then, my wife gets out of the hospital. We send our daughter off to college. And we have what was that next year, which would have been the job change for me and leaving ministry. And then... daughter comes home for summer this last summer. I changed jobs. My wife changed jobs, and hers was one. She needed to get out of the kitchen. It's a lot of physical work.
Get out of the professional kitchen.
Yeah, get out of the 400-degree steam ovens that will melt your flesh off of your face and into something else. And so she found this position, which is perfect for her with the CAAAAA agency, and so then now in the midst of that, I changed careers again to Paisley Park.
Right.
And yeah, it's kind of been interesting because I think the generation that you and I are part of,
Gen X, we were like the tail end of Gen X.
We're the very end of the Gen Xers.
Yeah.
We were raised thinking whatever you did when you got out of school, that's just what you were going to do.
Right, because that's what our parents did for the most part.
No, my father-in-law, the job that he got out of high school was the job he retired from. And that's pretty much the same with my brother-in-law.
My grandfather's as well. It's my grandfather, especially on on my mom's side. Yeah, took a job as a tool and die maker, and his watchmaker was his side thing. Which turned out to be like a secondary primary thing, but he was a tool and die maker, and the company he was at just got bought eventually by bigger and bigger companies.
Yeah,
he kept the same job his whole career. Yeah,
and that's one. It's not feasible really anymore.
No,
for the majority of people. I mean, yeah, there are some
niche areas,
but for the most part, it's just not the way it's going. The paradigm has shifted. I think one of the things I read earlier said, you're better off applying for a new job every 2 years than trying to get a raise every 2 years, because the amount budgeted for new hires is usually, depending on the size of your company, the amount budgeted for new hires is usually more than the percentage designated for raises.
And that speaks so poorly to kind of the mindset, the corporate mindset, right? I
Oh,
mean, you
absolutely.
should not have to leave a job to get better work. You should not have to leave a job to be compensated fairly in the industry, right? I mean, it's
Well,
so many
and the
companies
first,
you get hired, and then they're like, "Well, that's your compensation range." It's like, well, but the
right.
industry shifted.
Yeah. The industry shifted. Inflation went up 14% in 3 months. Well, and like with
and you're now paying a new hire more than somebody who's been there 5 years or 10 years.
Right.
Don't be surprised when that person flips you the bird and goes
absolutely.
out the door and leaves you with the newbie.
Yep.
Nothing against the newbie. I mean, good for them for negotiating a good package. But if you're not taking care, I mean, and maybe it's a company that doesn't care about taking care of their experienced people, and especially in tech, they're a meat grinder. I mean, it's a lot of the big companies are meat grinders.
Oh yeah,
but you are
huge.
You are losing the institutional knowledge, and that will bite you at some point.
Oh, always. Yeah, it's frustrating, and I think growing up with that mentality like we did, I when I jumped into cabinet making, I was like, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do until I die, and
so for next people,
that almost happened a couple times. We
your own fault though.
Yeah. Nothing because of something anybody else did. But I
can harm myself. Thank you. I don't need help.
Yeah. Oh, I can do that plenty of times. I can post pictures of my first week at the cabinet shop.
I worked in theater. It's if I wasn't bleeding, it wasn't a show.
Exactly. But my wife asked me the other day. She's like, "So, what's your mentality with this job at Paisley Park?" And I think for the first time in my life, and in my wife's life too, because we've both been having these epiphanies, is the job, it's perfect for me for right now. It's, cabinet making was an incredible opportunity to get me out of ministry, which was my main goal.
Right.
And
hard to be a minister when you're not believing what you're ministering anymore.
Hard to be a minister when you're an atheist, leading people in worship songs to God.
Just change them to baby, and you got
baby. But so
I'm not wrong.
In the midst, no, you're not. And seriously, Christian songwriters, okay, fine. You're going to write your songs, but can you please pay attention to the imagery that you are using in the songs that you write? Because it is really difficult to keep a straight face while talking about getting down on your knees before God. Okay? It's just...
There was somebody had posted something I saw a few weeks ago where somebody had basically said, if we took this song and changed everything to baby, and basically it's like this song would probably be like, protested by Christians.
Oh, absolutely. And it would be a huge radio hit because
and I've got nothing against anybody for their belief and all that kind of stuff. No. But let's face it, I mean the religious, especially the evangelical Christian music market is basically 5 years behind, at least 5 years behind whatever's going on in the pop music market.
Yeah.
It's pretty much how it works, right?
Absolutely.
It's well, basically whatever's happening now, it's 5 years from now will be in the Christian market.
Yeah, and with the way that they do it with the Christian market is when the Christian market decides they want to, what they call break a band, so you get your crossover success, they bring in a producer from secular music to custom craft your album. So when DC Talks Jesus Freak came out, they brought over, was it Eno? I think they brought over Brian Eno.
Was it Brian Eno?
to produce the album, because that's the sound they wanted. They wanted Eno's fingerprint on the album. So, but anywho, through all of that, I ended up with that new mentality change of, this is perfect for now. There's an organization out there called the Clergy Project. And what they do is they help pastors who have gone through experiences like what I did to kind of assess what they want to do. Because I think one thing I realized is I've spent my entire life helping people. That's what I don't want to say trained or raised to do, but it's always been at the core of what I've been doing is helping people. And watching my wife transition into her job and seeing the joy she gets out of helping other people, and how much the things that she enjoys can outweigh the the really bad days, the crappy days. And I want to see maybe there's something out there that I can get involved in again that helps others, that's not ministry. So starting in January, I start a 3-month program with a gentleman through this clergy project that we basically meet every week for about an hour online, and we do assessments and I do homework, which, I was great at that in school. So why wouldn't I excel now? And at the end of 3 months, we'll see. I might have a career path that I want to pursue. I might just find out, yeah,
You,
you know
you
what?
need
You're
this.
pretty much only
I
qualified
need
to
the
be a maintenance
sarcasm.
man.
So I because we decided to do this last night, I'm woefully unprepared with graphics. I will not make that mistake again for next week. Because that should have been a sarcasm when you said you were good at homework.
Oh my God. No, if you couldn't tell from my facial expression.
Well,
We've said it before. Well, that's true, but we've said it before. Mark qualified for Mensa. I passed 8th grade with D's, straight D's. So you get what you get, and you don't.
I'm not gonna make the. It's funny though. If you looked at my GPAs, they wouldn't be a lot better than that.
Yeah, my senior year was the only year I didn't make honor roll, but I made merit. But that was because it was my senior year, and half of my day I was at a vocational school building cabinets. So I enjoyed that. You'd be
surprised how many people who were tagged as gifted have. Yeah, go cue the Far Side cartoon. But you'd be surprised how many have, ADD, ADHD,
Yeah.
I mean, and this was the era before that crap was diagnosed. And I say crap just as not as a, not that I don't believe it, because I fully believe it.
Oh yeah.
I say it because it really sucks. It's crap to have to deal with that in life.
Yeah.
And I know I've got,
and when you don't know what it is, like they did when we were growing up, because we were just daydreamers, dawdlers, our head were in the clouds.
Right. I mean, if you were hyperactive enough, you'd get diagnosed. Right.
Yeah.
And
then it was straight to Ritalin. There was
instantly, instant medication, but if you weren't the hyper type, I have never been described as hyper in my life. Sloth-like, perhaps, but I've never been described as hyper. I'm, I am, as fast as a tortoise.
You just reminded me. You remember the show Night Court?
Of course.
Okay, and there was a guy who was a recurring character
R.I.P.
that suffered from that suffered from a disease called tortoise something. But so he had the really long face.
Oh, yes.
Really slowly.
And by the way, for those who are younger and haven't watched Night Court, if you are a geek and a Trekkie, you can go back and find some of the best Brent Spiner data acting.
Oh yes,
on that show.
He is awesome on that show.
Yeah, him and the wife who played the the worm farmers.
Yep. Yeah,
the worm farming episode.
They buy the snack area at some point, and Bull comes over and it's like $500 for a Snickers bar.
Yes, that show was so massively underrated.
It was so good.
It really was.
One of my favorite lines was somebody on the show said something about being a goose, or will goose me, and Bull reaches over to pinch their ass, and somebody says something. He's like, "What? The ass?" So good.
Yes. So I will come prepared with graphics and some other things. I want to have I want to have photographic aids for the next time.
Yeah, I have a feeling there's going to be a soundboard coming soon too.
I've actually got the Stream Deck over here, so I just I had a limit. I mean, I spun up. I took one of my other YouTube channels that I hadn't used yet, pivoted it over for us.
Oh, okay.
But then I never requested live streaming on that channel. So if for those of you who haven't gone through that, it's like when you want to do live on YouTube, you have to give them a day's notice, and it kind of prevents some of the stupidity is the thought. So it's a 24-hour wait period. So that 24-hour wait period ended at about 1:56 a.m. last night. So I was kind of limited in what I could like prep here in the meantime.
Right.
So it's like,
Well, yeah.
in
As we're
fact,
wrapping up, as we're wrapping up, I just want to point out to people that while Mark and I do typically speak on a daily basis via messaging, all of the conversation regarding two hairy guys versus that has led to this episode has taken place within the last 24 hours.
Yes.
Outside of once I said I got the job at Paisley Park and I passed my drug test, where we said, okay, Fridays I can do it.
Right.
So
yeah. And it's like, and I've, thankfully it's like I have enough, like, I do enough work after hours. I don't mind taking an hour during a work day and doing this. We'll find probably a more permanent time for this.
Yep. Get a groove set and then you can tune in when you want. Same time.
Exactly. All right. So I will let you handle the outro here.
All right, everybody. We just want to thank you for tuning in. Yeah, music will be here next sometime. We will be recording again before 14 months passes, and we just want to thank you for tuning in. And if any of you are still listening on TikTok and subscribe, and this is popping up, I just want to thank you.
Twitter,
not TikTok. What the hell?
You're the TikToker.
Yeah, that was my bad. Sorry.
I prefer to not hand Chinese intelligence everything about me.
My DNA is all over the place. But yeah. So if you've subscribed to us,
how many kids?
If you've subscribed to us on Spotify or iTunes, and all of a sudden this has popped up, hey, say hello to us. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We are not on TikTok.
And we will still be on Spotify. We will still be on Apple Podcasts. Yeah. We will still be there I think we have more people there than anywhere else.
So come listen to us. Come find us. Come watch us. And
come love us.
Come love us because we're hairy and we need love too. So until next time.
Thanks for watching.
Night.